Hello. Hey. It's me, James. Confused? Aroused? I don't blame you. Matt normally does these, but I'm doing it today. So, he's asked me to mention two couple little things for you all playing along at home. There's a discount. There's a discount on the online store. Something to do with a podcast code. I don't know what it is. Maybe have a look online. It'll be something to do with DCE Pirate Radio podcast and a discount code. If you want to listen to Tiny Sumo, who is much more qualified to talk about things like wrestling, go check him out. He is in the links there somewhere underneath podcasts. If you're feeling sick, if you're getting a cold, drink some Jamu. Do you Jamu? There's 3 ways to do it. There's an exciting video coming soon, but make sure you Jamu. Anyway, today's episode of DCE Pirate Radio, we have Brendan from Fable Blades on the line. There's a little bit of fucking around trying to work out how to get the camera to work, but we got there eventually. He's in Perth and he makes swords, which I didn't think was a thing until today. Turns out it's a thing. He's writing a book, which he is self-publishing soon. He's got a website. I feel like it's www.fableblades.com, possibly .au. Don't know. I'm not being much help here. I'm sure Matt will put links in the bio. But it's a good chat. We had a chat about all the normal stuff you would expect, like how you make swords and how we got into it. And then we sort of wander off into a bit of hippie territory, which I liked. And he tells us about how he quit his job and followed his passion, and it's working well for him. So, hopefully if I just keep on surrounding myself with people like that, we'll be okay, Ma. Anyway, that's more than enough rambling from me. We will see you on the other side. Beezy Wees.
I'll kiss you on the lips and take you to Italy.
That is a classic.
You shut your mouth when you're talking to me.
Anyway, no time for nonsense. Gotta get down to business.
We're gonna get straight to the point. We've got no time for nonsense.
No time for messing around. Straight to the point.
No time for fluffing about. Straight to it. Just straight to the point.
Just gotta get on with it.
Better not be honeydew me, bro.
Don't you look at me in that tone of voice. Auf Wiedersehen! Now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce to you, from the depths of our twisted imaginations, the DCE Pirate Radio podcast.
That doesn't make any sense.
The Pirate Radio podcast, my friend.
You're such an idiot.
Yippee-ki-yay.
Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of DCE Pirate Radio. Today we've got Brendan on from Fable Blades. Fable Blades. So I screw up every intro. I screw up the name.
I've literally written it.
Oh, I know how to say Blades. I just, as soon as I'm doing an intro, I get
nervous.
I get nervous that I'm going to screw up names. But
who are you? This is your host, Matthew.
So yeah, off to a flying start again for me. I reckon we might kick it off with the dumb question that I asked in our email exchange about what's the difference. Well, maybe tell us a little bit quickly about what you do, and if you could tell me the difference between a blacksmith and a swordsmith.
Can I guess the difference?
Pardon?
Can I guess the difference before you tell us?
Go.
I feel like a swordsmith would be like a specialized blacksmith. Like a blacksmith would just make hammers and horseshoes and shit. A swordsmith would be like it'd be like specializing in a type of medicine. Like you can be just a general doctor, or you're like the surgeon of doctors. I know that that's not how doctors and surgeons work, but that's my guess anyway.
Yeah, it's not. It's a fair guess for sure. And there's how you go. It's but the major difference is blacksmiths work with a forge, and a swordsmith in the modern era does not need to touch a forge. I hardly ever touch a forge.
What's a forge?
The forge is basically your air-powered fire pit. So you've got your fire pit, you're pumping air through it. It used to be the bellows, now you can use electrical pumps. It makes the fire rage, basically, so you can concentrate a lot of heat where you need it.
Right.
And then you're pounding the metal out. You're basically turning the metal into, when you heat it up, you turn the metal semi-liquid, and then you can pound it out into whatever shape you want. But, days of old, there's so many different steps in making swords traditionally. and different people did every different step. You would have had dozens of people possibly doing the different steps in making a sword. But today I just buy my steel from a foundry, and all the forging work that I need is done at the foundry. So I'm buying a flat bar of steel, which is in a perfect shape for me to just go and grind off the excess and turn it into a blade or a guard or a pommel or whatever I need. So I don't actually do very much like hot smithing work at all. I have a forge and I use it occasionally for scrolling and twisting and bending things, or maybe if I have to draw out a bit of tang or whatever. But I don't generally do it. But when you consider a smith, like a locksmith, you can't imagine a locksmith pounding out logs at a forge either. They have a shop and they fix your logs, but they're still locksmiths or a gunsmith. You're not going to forge out a gun barrel, are you?
Yeah. So technology has made things a bit easier.
Oh yeah. You got lathes and machines, and it's and the steel that we get now, it's precise. All the technologies are precise to give you exact steels with exact alloys at exactly the right molecular structure that you want. The sort of stuff that they couldn't dream of, 1,000 years ago.
Yeah,
but
when they were running around, just like. What are swords made of?
Say again?
What are swords made of?
Sword blades in particular.
Yeah.
First thing is they're never stainless steel, which you see, most of your cheapy swords are stainless steel blades. Real swords are never stainless steel. They rust really fast.
Yep.
You always have to have a layer of oil on them. It's a high carbon steel. So steel is basically iron and carbon combined. High carbon steels, once you get over a certain percentage of carbon, you can then harden the steel. Below that percentage, you can quench the steel, which is you get it red hot and you pop it into a quenchant like water or oil. If it's a low carbon steel, you cannot get it to harden. If it's a high carbon steel, it will harden when you quench it, possibly crack. Get some really high stress structures in the molecular structure of the steel. So a high carbon steel is the only material that you use for a blade. However, these days we have many, many, many alloys of high carbon steel that you can choose from for whatever your particular purpose. And if you're making a knife, a shorter blade, you can use stainless steel. But for swords, because they're so long, they take a lot of shock, a lot of impact. There's vibrations and resonances. You don't want that chromium in the blade because the chromium makes the blade quite brittle, and a sword blade can snap if it's got that chromium from the stainless steel in that blade. So you want to stick to a rusting high carbon steel.
So if you were making a sword and you quenched it and it cracked, is that all done now, or do you just cut a bit off and make it a dagger or something?
Exactly, yeah, you can salvage it. You can make it a spear point or a dagger or whatever you want. I've done stuff like that. But I hardly ever have it crack, almost never. And even then, I don't think it cracked. It actually wouldn't harden in a particular section. So I just cut that bit off and just took the base of the blade and made it into a dagger. But no, I don't get cracks in my steel. Sorry, I meant
it to be short the whole time.
Yeah, it's meant to be a short
I was trying to be a dagger. It's a small sword.
Any sculpture, it's in there. You just got to bring it out. And it's about finding it. Like when I make a magic wand, I love making magic wands. And
out of steel?
No, just out of timber.
Oh, right.
Just shape them up. But I never know what they're going to be when I start. I just start shaping and see what comes out of it. I just get led. And that's got to happen with any creative process. You've got to open yourself up to being led. You can't be a control freak or you're restricting creativity.
You've already answered one of the questions I had, which was like, what techniques do you use? Like, do you use modern techniques or use old techniques? Because I don't know enough to have a educated opinion, but I know there's some people out there that like to do things in the traditional way. Whether it's making swords or whether it's, making anything. And at some point, my instinct is, if we've got an easier way to do it, why would you make things hard on yourself to do it the old way? While I understand the tradition, are you kind of the same opinion by the sounds of things, or?
I have my choices of techniques. Everyone who makes swords makes them differently.
Yeah.
You choose the techniques that suit your equipment or what you're passionate about, what your talents are. And a lot of guys out there just love to heat something up hot and pound away at it. It makes them feel really primal.
How many innuendos are there going to be in this podcast?
No, it's not me. I don't do that because I am a real perfectionist. So I want everything not millimeter perfect, like to the 10th of a millimeter perfect. I measure things to the 10th of a millimeter, so I can only get that by stock removal techniques, which is what you call it when you grind or file or sand something. It's stock removal, you're removing the excess. But there's a lot of guys out there just love forging stuff out, and they love that, real rough, ancient look.
Yeah,
I get it.
Whatever, yeah. It's all available. You can do whatever you want, each to their own, and it's whatever terms you want, isn't it?
Yeah. So how long have you, how did you get into being a swordsmith, and how long have you done it for? And
I've been professional for 10 years, and I didn't start that much before then.
Okay.
It was really funny how I went from being a hobbyist to being a professional. There's a real cool story about that. But it was basically, I was on eBay and just, I don't know what I was doing, looking for, a Conan DVD or something. I found there was a Conan sword that you could buy. It was like $60. It was just this crappy Conan sword. I'm like, I hadn't even thought of looking for swords on eBay. And so, I'll have that. But it was, and then I'm looking at more swords. And it's that process of, as you search for something, you get made aware of new information, which makes you search for information. It just became a whole study, which hasn't ended from that point. There's some really cool websites like the Sword Buyer's Guide, which I found pretty quick, and that's a community, and it's also a resource site which tells people the differences between, the wall hangers and a real sword, just to educate people. And then it also has a target of introducing people to affordable swords. But over the last decade, they've become less and less affordable. And also the site has become more and more open to high-end stuff and more inclusive of the whole sword community. But it's a great place to start for people who want to learn about. It's called Sword Buyer's Guide. And, it's a great place to start your research journey. And swords are an enormous universe of different fields of study. I mean, it's endless. You can spend lifetimes on it. It's so cool.
Is there what would the average sword go for? Because I've read fantasy books since I was a little kid, so I've always wanted a sword, and I've done similar things to you, and I've never clicked purchase because the ones that are in my price range they look a little bit flimsy, probably what you were calling a wall hanger, and I'm like, nah, I want the best one, and then I find out how much the best one is. I'm like, I'll get that later. I think we had that conversation via, my goal is to get to the point where I can make it a business expense that I buy one of your swords. So, what's the average sword go for something that's not shit?
All right. Yeah, you've got to set your parameters.
Yeah.
So I'm getting a bit of feedback from you. Average but not shit, you really need to spend for something that's functional but mass produced. You probably want to spend sort of $500 to $1,000 US because they're never in Australia.
Yeah.
For something sort of entry level, decent, functional, it's not going to break on you. It's not going to helicopter off and go through your dog when you use it. That's your entry level, but that's not an average sword because. As an interesting thing, I was reading a museum site, and they had the documentation of this original small sword from the 18th century, and it was a gift to a general or a lieutenant or something, and it was a really ornate, beautiful small sword, and they told you the price that it was when it was commissioned, back then, and I did some calculations, and I figured it was about a $30,000 sword in today's money, and you don't see a lot of that stuff, but, there's some people whose prices go up there, and especially I don't get into the Japanese stuff, but the Japanese stuff these days, it's all really authentic traditional techniques. They're all registered and licensed, and it's all government registered. Their swords, they're national treasures, and I have no idea what they go for, but I'm sure they're up there.
Yeah, and these are new swords. These aren't even like, if you start talking about the ones that have a bit of history to them, I've heard of ones going for 500,000 plus for like some of the Japanese ones. Well, and some of them they just say priceless, and you can't, you're not buying that off anyone.
Yeah, I had a guy contact me recently. He has his clan sword. He's the clan leader for the Scottish clan. Yeah, and he's like the leader of the clan, and he's got the traditional sword as 250 years old or whatever. And he's got it insured for 500,000.
Yeah.
Mm. So he didn't want to send it to me, unfortunately.
Oh,
I was
looking
forward to dealing with it. Oh, he wanted a scabbard built for it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, ideally I need the sword. And he's, you can do a tracing, and we can try and do it off a tracing and some measurements.
What's a scabbard?
Which I've done before.
But
he decided.
Where you put the sword in.
Oh, yeah.
The scabbard, yeah. Yeah, I make scabbards, which is the wooden and leather sheath for the sword, and the belt work. This is the harness, basically, so you can wear them. I do all that.
You mentioned that there was an interesting story about how you went from being a hobbyist to a professional. Is that interesting in, I cannot let that be going out to the public, or is that something you can share?
Oh, no, it's cool. It's cool. That's where you get a bit deeper, and like with you guys, obviously what you're doing is following your passion, and you're turning it into a business, and you've gone and jumped out there and you've become self-employed, and you're putting your stuff out there and putting you're embracing what you love, basically, and
yeah, even if I do want to punch in the head occasionally.
Oh, it's frustrating. Like it depends what your rewards are. So it's hard to make $1 million just following your art or your hobby or whatever you're into.
It's hard to make $1 million doing anything though.
Yeah, well, unless I've got a degree in business, but it's not what I'm passionate about. It's just school. But no, it's sort of, I've got a book which I'm writing, and I write about it in my book, which is sort of targeted to help people understand how you can turn your passion into a business. And you guys probably can relate to it, and it's that creative process and that process of just taking that leap of faith. And anyway, the way it happened with me, there's a lot of synchronicity in it, and which was really obvious at the time. I was kind of pushed into it, almost fell into it, and the way things went down in a real short time, everything just came to me. Once I said I'm going to do this, everything just came to me like in a real short space, and boom, I hit the ground running. It was really cool.
Yeah.
I could go into more detail at it.
We'll save that. We want people to read your book, so we'll save the detail for your book.
Yeah, cool.
When's it coming out? You mentioned it in an email.
Oh, it's in gestation at the moment. Like everything you do's got to gestate before it's ready. It's finished. Like it's practically finished. It's just every time I read over it, I get a new perspective on it. Like with any book that you read a second time, you read it with a new set of eyes. And every time I read over it, I want to change stuff and muck around with it. So it's pretty much finished.
The perfectionist coming out.
Yeah, and just because I'm growing too, I'm going through a period of growth right now. I don't know if you guys have been feeling it, but just this last month or so, things have been happening, and I've been having some growth, like I say, which is cool. So I'm sort of going back over it. Yeah,
I feel like I can't remember why I know this. Maybe you tagged me. Didn't you send me? It wasn't like Mercury in retrograde or something. I couldn't work out whether you were making fun of me or not.
I was more sending it to you because I know your girlfriend likes
those sorts of things. Yep. What was it? I'll find. Allow me to share with you. something from the mind of Matthew.
Facebook. It's all on Facebook.
If you've been feeling detached and disconnected, it's because the 27th lunar eclipse in July isn't a rebirth; it's a completely new life. There's a lot happening, but there's a lot that's been happening, and it's the start of something new. Apparently, tag someone who needs to hear this good news.
Well, it's been good. First, you got to let go of the old stuff. That's the biggest thing for most people is getting out of your comfort zone and letting go of your old life. But the old you have to let it die to be a new you. You've got to be prepared to let stuff go. And, some of the stuff that I've been going through and it feels great. It's good letting go of stuff I've been hanging on to since I was a kid. And,
he's probably relating to this more than me because I'm still part-time at my day job, whereas James has already jumped off the cliff. So I can see him smirking to himself when you're talking.
I'm frantically trying to build the parachute at the moment. Not even frantically, to be honest. I'm just like, oh, well, I've jumped. I should probably build a parachute.
Hope I land somewhere soft.
Yeah. To be in our defense, I guess, I'm lucky because there's two of us, it halves the risk essentially. It sort of.
But doubles the profit margin.
It halves the profit. But it reduces the risk as well. I feel like I jumped off the cliff. I had all the things to build a parachute and a rough blueprint, and I just jumped. And now it's not like I just went, fuck it, I'm just going to quit my job and see what happens. Like, I had a rough idea of what I wanted to do, and it was.
Sorry, I'm losing the signal.
You got us?
It's dropping out on me.
Hello?
Can you hear us now?
Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
On our end, it's all good.
Yeah, it's a little bit jumpy.
Sorry, I'm in the country, so the signal's terrible.
Whereabouts? I don't know why I just asked because I don't know Perth at all, but... Hello?
Oh, God, no, it's dropping out on me. I'm going to open the window, see if I can get some signal. Sorry, it keeps dropping out on me. I'm trying to get some more signal in here. I just opened the window.
What did you do before you were a swordsmith?
Have you got me?
We can still see and hear you, yeah.
That's right. We can pause and restart. I know enough to edit to put these together. Let's try that.
You're going to edit this later?
Yeah. Or I'll leave it in. If you're listening to this, I didn't edit it out yet.
This is what a phone call in Western Australia on the internet is like. Even like we use Messenger because the phone signal is so bad. You can't even make a phone call. You have to do it with Messenger. Yeah.
How far in the like what as a reference point? Do you know South Australia at all?
No, I've never been to South Australia.
Yeah. So, how country are you?
Oh, no, not that country. Just hobby farm.
How far out of?
I'm 160 k's from Perth.
Okay, so that's
not that far.
It's not that far, but it's far enough.
It's far enough that you're gonna not get the best signal.
Yeah, I'm between two towns. I got a town about 8 k's that way, and I've got another town about 11 k's that way. So
yeah, right.
I can see the tower just about. It's pretty flat here. But yeah, anyway, James, you're saying you're building your parachute.
Yeah, no, it was one of those. Yeah, we didn't jump off completely blind. It was, I had a rough idea of what I had to do, and I'm learning very quickly that you don't need as much money as you think you do to survive. Which is interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens now as I start to make more money. Like it'll be interesting to see if I'm smarter with my money as I start making it again.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do. I mean, toning down the insurance levels that you've got, getting rid of, pay TV. There's so many things you can do to trim that fat and just, streamline.
Well, it's more just
budget.
like just
And you have to.
not. Yeah, exactly. When you don't have the money, you don't spend it on the stuff that you potentially would have, like, for no apparent reason. Like it just makes you. The second voice in my head is more prevalent at the moment, where it goes, "Do you really need to buy that?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, maybe I won't." Whereas normally I'd just be like, "Oh cool, look at that, shiny, I buy it." Hence, I now have 10. Hence, I'm going through boxes.
Is this going to help the business?
Yeah. Well, is this going to help put food on the table?
This is it. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. And you don't miss stuff. You don't miss it. Like pay TV, You come up with other things.
Yeah.
We've spoken about it in some of our previous episodes that there's a point you get to where money doesn't equal happiness. So they've done some studies on it that you need to be able to like live. You need to be able to put food on your table because being poor makes you unhappy. But after you get to a certain amount and it's not that much money, there's no correlation between earning any more money and happiness. It's just you got more problems.
It's almost negative.
Yeah.
It's almost negative, yeah. Like the more stuff you have, yeah, like you say, the more problems you have, the more stress you have. How am I going to secure my stuff? How can I protect it all? It just becomes more problematic. Absolutely, you have to cover your security and your health. You have to take care of yourself and your family, put a roof over your head and feed yourself. But yeah, like you say, it doesn't have to go much further than that, really.
Yeah.
And you get cool stuff. Like my wife's so good at finding stuff on like the classifieds. Like we got like a $3,000 fish tank for free. It had been advertised for about 6 months. No one wanted it. And like we just found this ad in the back of Facebook. She's just come across this ad and she contacted Mom. Have you still got that? And she's like, yeah. Do you want it? It's free. Just take it. And
I just don't want it in my house anymore.
Yeah.
That's all it was. I don't want it here. I'm over it. And it's like a $3,000 fish tank. And yeah, we'll take that. Gave her $50 just, to secure it and say thanks. So it was an exchange. But we get heaps of free stuff,
I got to get on this free stuff. I like the sound of free stuff.
You do, mate. It makes me laugh sometimes when you do like your mental arithmetic every so often. You're like, oh, we can do this and this and this. Then I can that means I can afford to not work this amount of time. And in the back of my head, I'm just like, just like, if it makes you happier, just do it and don't have the money for a while. Like, but I'm now on the other side of the, like before, I know the thought process you're going through because I was there 6 months ago. And now I'm just like, oh, well. Talk to me in 6 months' time and see if I'm still happy. If I'm still happy in 6 months' time, and I said this when I quit my job 3 months ago. I said, talk to me after the end of financial year and see if I'm still smiling, and I am so far. So so far so good.
Yeah, it's a new way of living for sure, and it's freeing, it's releasing. And you look at the minimalist movement, there's a whole movement these days about minimalism and just getting rid of crap. And that's another thing. You can sell so much crap, or you can just give it away to people.
Yeah.
We've just got so much stuff, that we don't need. And you buy something new, you sell something old, it pays for the new thing. If you buy second hand, things like that. Yeah, well, there's so many things you can do.
I was listening to I was listening to an audiobook of The Barefoot Investor a little while ago, and that sort of, it didn't trigger it, but it certainly reinforced the thought process I was already sort of going through, because like, I don't know if you've read it or
no, I haven't seen that one.
They basically,
who is it?
He's got a funny last name. I can't
Mr. Barefoot.
Yeah, no, he's a financial planner now, or maybe he was before, but they've got a hobby farm in country Victoria somewhere, and they were affected by the bushfires like 10 years ago, and they lost everything, basically. Like, their house burnt to the ground, everything they owned was gone. And that was, for them, that was the tipping point when, like, they had insurance and everything, and the insurance company said, yeah, we're going to pay out XYZ. And his wife, at first they were like, oh, we're just going to go down to Harvey Norman's and just buy new everything. And then all of a sudden, like, they just sort of said, oh, no, actually, like, let's just let's just sit on it for a while and like wait and see, like buy things as we need them. So like, there's super essential stuff like a washing machine, a fridge, that sort of shit, which I imagine they just went and got. But yeah, they treat it like so yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment. Is I'm throwing away. I'm treating my house like I've been in a bushfire, but I'm lucky enough to be able to savour the stuff that I really would be upset if I lost. Like things that are irreplaceable that have sentimental value to me. Which again, I'm being super harsh at the moment. I'm throwing away like like I found some old love letters from when I was like 16 the other day, and like all this stuff that I haven't looked at it for 5 years. I won't look at it for another 5
years since you were 16.
No, I haven't. No, like, I haven't looked at it since I put it in that box 5 years ago.
Well, that's worse. So you were looking at love letters from when you were 16, when you were 27. That's worse.
When I moved house. Like, that's what I mean. Like, I would have looked at them when I was moving house and been like, oh, I can't throw those away. Like,
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yeah. But now, they're gone. They're done. Sorry, Jess.
That's true. There's a lot of stuff you're not going to look at it. You're not going to use it.
Yeah, and then because you think, you're like, oh, but it's sentimental. And it's like, but who are you ever going to share that with? I'm not going to get my current girlfriend to be like, hey, do you want to read through these love letters from when I was 16 years old? She's going to be like, no, I don't fucking care.
Can we do that and film it and just see how that goes?
It'd just be Carly sitting there awkwardly looking at me like, you're an idiot.
Oh.
Yeah.
And me feeling like an idiot.
I know. Yeah, so I'm getting rid of my toys. I've still got my toys. I thought I'd have kids to play with these toys. And it's been so long now that the toys are so redundant that,
yeah, if it's not digital, then collectible.
I've got like a 1978 Han Solo, and I'm like, it's 40 years old, it's going to be worth heaps.
It's probably worth $1 million. You could sell that and you don't have to work another day in your life.
It's like $15.
Ah.
Yeah, I sold it. No one wants them. It's it's not treasure. But yeah, I'm never having kids, so yeah, I've just been hanging on to this stuff. It's the one I happened out of a dream. I had a dream where all the stuff was just in the mud out in the front yard in the dream, and there was a snake in the dream, and snakes are a transformational sort of symbol, and I'm just like, I want to get rid of all my old stuff. Well, some of it anyway. Some of the stuff I've been hanging on to.
Yeah, yeah, you're like me. I can't fully commit to throwing everything away, but I'm doing a good job.
I've got clean out.
I've gotten through. I've had about 6 full bin bags so far, and that's only going through like one corner of my room, basically. So my plan is just to throw everything away and then live like a gypsy for a while.
Just give it to the salvos or whoever.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm going to give away a heap of clothes.
Yeah.
So you said you've got a hobby farm?
Yeah, I've got 23 acres here down near Harvey, and heap of animals. It's just our little fur friends.
Yeah. How you, like this? You're speaking to me on like this is not my dream, but my plan going forward is to get myself about 20 acres, enough land that I can grow enough fruit, vegetables, like nut trees, all that sort of stuff, and have some livestock to be as close to self-sufficient as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me more about this hobby farm.
No, that's it. We've got chickens, we've got veggie patch, we've got a small orchard that I've planted. The goats are keeping the orchard from thriving, as are the local birds. But we've got goats, we've got horses, 6 horses, 4 goats, got a couple of dogs and some cats, and the fish, of course.
Yeah, in their expensive fish tank.
Yeah, my free expensive fish tank.
What sort of are they? Edible fish?
I don't eat meat. So they're all of our animals are never going to be sausages. People see the goats and they're like, "Oh, you're going to make sausages?" No. No.
Do you guys eat meat?
No.
No. Are you fully plant, but like vegetarian, vegan?
Yeah, I'm full vegetarian. I will not touch marshmallows or
Yeah, right. There you go.
Yeah.
So you would be almost completely. So what do you do? Your mains water, mains power, or?
Oh yeah, I mean that's part of the the dream too. Is to get onto solar power, and we get water through the irrigation scheme, but one day we'll put down a bore. You can run a solar pump off your bore and run it to a tank, and all that. Solar power would be great, but I use some pretty power draining equipment. My kiln pulls about 4,800 watts.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you'd need mains power.
Yeah, but the more self-sufficient you can get, the better.
Well, how'd they do it in the old days when they didn't have?
They had cold showers.
Early, and you were knackered from a hard day on the farm.
Yeah, you didn't have time to be recording podcasts.
Yeah.
You were out doing physical manual labour.
This is it. Tilling fields with a little hand tool instead of a big deal.
So do you have any favourite swords? Like, is there? I'm generally the one that asks all the dumb questions that everybody wants to ask but is too embarrassed to ask because they don't want to look stupid. So are there a particular type of sword that you make or that you like, and what are they?
Yeah, I'm into the cruciform swords of your classic European history.
So what's that thing behind
sword.
you?
Yeah, this sort of thing. This is one that I made. It's about a 15th century, very common in the 15th century. It's a Type 18 oak shot Type 18 sword, single-handed and cruciform, as you can see here.
So is
the
handle? Is it all one piece of steel?
No, they're all different parts that are put together. I don't know what you can see. If you can see the leatherwork, it's all embossed, and the edges on the blade.
How do you fix it together? So, like, I know the pommel and everything is separate. Do they get welded together, or do they get glued together, or do they? You're showing me, aren't you?
Looking for my
yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Little button on top there. So the blade basically reduces down to a tang which runs through the middle of the grip and the guard and the pommel and comes out the top of the pommel there, and you basically heat it up and hammer it down so it mushrooms out. So it's physically
held on there
and locking that in place so it cannot come apart.
So if you were to grind that little button off, technically is the handle the pommel? Is that what we're talking about?
The pommel is the bit on the end.
Oh, so that would all come off.
It could potentially, yeah. I've glued it all. I've filled it all with glue to really make them solid. I also peen the parts together. So where the tang passes through the guard, I smashed all the steel in around that tang, so the guard is actually clamped onto the tang, so there's no movement, and it's fastened, pretty solid. Like when you cut something, it'll ring like a bell. It's just it's made from all different parts. The grip is a wooden core which is hollowed out and wrapped in leather.
Do you do so? Like, when I've been following you for lots of years, because I got in because I read a lot of fantasy books, so I saw you making all the I saw the Wheel of Time one, which got me locked into it from the beginning.
It's popular.
But some of your recent stuff seems to be more like making clan saws or making original pieces for people. Is that by necessity, or is that a direction you're trying to go in, or?
It's just what I'm good at, I guess. I mean, I like to do somewhat fantasy stuff. I'm inspired by a lot of that fantasy sort of stuff, and also working with other people with their visions of because some people have been reading The Wheel of Time for 30 years.
Yeah.
And they've had this vision in their head of what this sword's supposed to look like, but I'll help them interpret that and turn it into a real sword. That's a lot of what I do, is making people's interpretations of their favourite fantasy swords. And everything I sort of base off a study of historical European swords. So I impart the principles of engineering and geometry based on European swords into my fantasy swords. So the fantasy swords will behave correctly for a sword rather than just being big clumps. I mean, and a sword like this is only about 1 kilo.
Wow. How long is it?
Overall, it's about 3 feet long, sort of 90-something centimetres.
Yeah.
The blade is about 70 centimetres, and then, another sort of 16 centimetres on the hilt. So that's a single-handed sword.
Do you get many requests for impractical swords? Because I know one of the worst things I ever found out is when, the sheath from the back, when I watched a video about how that's pretty much impossible. You'd need to have halfway through.
Not that long.
Yeah. I'm like, that broke my heart when I found that out. So people get real devastated when you're like, yeah, that's not going to work that way, the way you think it's going to work.
Work for He-Man. I always steer them. I always steer people.
That someone's
because I've got a background. I've got a background in sales, so it's about telling people the benefits. So if I'd like to steer someone in a certain direction, I explain the benefits of going that direction, and they'll agree with me. And most of my clients give me free rein. They're just like, yeah, you know what you're doing. I just show them as you go, and they're really not that attached to the outcome, which is great for creativity. Yeah. Because if people are attached to an outcome, they're only going to stifle creativity and end up disappointed. But no, when they can just give me a fairly free rein, I can make some pretty awesome stuff. Well, it comes out, I just sort of find it.
What do people use them for? I'm looking for reasons to buy one. What do people use them for? So
there's no use for swords anymore.
Well, I'm asking, like, do people actually practically use them? Are they swinging them around, or are they sticking them on the wall?
People do. They use cheap swords for that more because people aren't very well trained at it generally, and they're practicing and they stuff up and they can damage the sword. So if they've got a $5,000 sword, they're probably not going to want to practice with that. But no, probably my main market is family heirlooms. A lot of people want to create a family heirloom or a commemorative sword to someone in their family, or a gift for a coming of age, or a deceased parent. This is to sort of honour my parent, or things like that. But and then there's all the nerds who have grown up, got their money, and I want He-Man sword, I want the Wheel of Time sword, I want Lord of the Rings sword, Gandalf sword. It's one of my favourites.
And then I'm going to go sit at my desk at my office job.
I'm just hold it. You put it on the wall and just, and just hold it. And just holding a sword is just an unreal experience.
I must admit, coming into this, I was like, I'd like swords of I have an interest in history. Like, I find things like this interesting, but this conversation is making me want to play with a sword somewhat. Like, I'm looking at that sword in the background thinking, like, that would be kind of fun just to swing around. I'd probably cut something or hurt Matt, but, when in Rome.
There's more funny videos of that on YouTube too. People swinging their swords in their apartments.
I saw a guy cut his friend's nose off.
Wow.
On YouTube,
When you hold a sword, it gives you a whole new understanding of history, because history is romanticized. But when you realize that I could literally cut a person in half with this, there'd be blood everywhere, they'd be dead really quickly. It's so horrific that people actually did that and even still are doing it. History is an account of massive insanity. And the most insane people are usually the ones who dominate it.
Yeah, end up in charge.
In the last, few thousand years, the history of the planet is so insane that having a sword and understanding that this is a real thing, people would turn on another person and murder them with this thing. It's shocking. Like, so it can really awaken people. It can be quite an awakening thing to have a sword, and that's sort of what something that I try and do by making very real swords, which are light, which are, well balanced and high performance. The more real a sword is like that, and the more lethal it is, the more respect and the more awakening it can be. Whereas you get these cheap stainless steel things from, the army surplus or cashies or whatever, and it's just a toy.
Yeah.
So it's probably no more awakening than getting a lightsaber from Toyland or something.
Yeah.
It's
interesting when It's interesting you put it in that context because I reckon it was World War. I'm really good at remembering the gist of things I've heard and not necessarily the specifics. But I reckon it was World War II. They reckon 90% of soldiers didn't fire at the enemy or didn't shoot to kill. And apparently, the closer you get to the act of inflicting harm on someone else, the harder it is for a human. Like it's against your human nature. So I can only imagine the will it would take or the insanity it would take to stab someone with a piece of metal. Yeah. It's interesting you put it in that perspective.
Unconsciousness, yeah. I'm all into sort of, higher consciousness and evolving consciousness. And, it takes pretty deep unconsciousness to be able to do that. And when you look at the post-traumatic stress disorder that veterans are going through now, and it's a massive social problem, even if they haven't been in high combat, but just to be a part of that, what the governments are doing, and how that affects people and ruins their lives. I mean, what's the homeless rate on veterans? It's massive.
It's huge. Yeah, we were talking about that the other week with Liam and Ash on our previous podcast. Yeah, sorry, the guest. I don't know if you've watched or listened to any of our other podcasts, but yeah, we did start going down that rabbit hole, but then the guys had to leave for training. But yeah, it's pretty astounding.
Yeah, this is it. It's still going on, but the world's waking up now. There's definitely a massive shift in consciousness taking place on Earth at the moment, and I want to be a part of it. You guys are part of it. It's happening. We get to watch it, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
How does that gel? So I know, I like the concept of like the warrior monk. So I don't use some of the same terminology. It sounds like we're on the same page wavelength. But when I think of a swordsmith or a blacksmith, as I would still naively call it in my head, I don't automatically think of more hippie vibe things. Like how do you find those two parts of your life gel? Is it the creative artist side of you that kind of aligns itself
I'm
to
an artist. Like I say, have a look at my website, fableblades.com, and you see the leather work I do and the artistic creations I come up with. I'm completely an artist, and I'm never happier than when I'm creating something, whether it's, just imagining it, sketching it, making it into steel, just the hours of, filing at things and sanding them and making it into, something that it wasn't. No, it's totally a creative process. And most of the sword makers that you see, they're highly intelligent people.
Yeah.
When you sort of see discussions with world-renowned swordsmiths, they are highly intelligent people. And they're pretty meek sort of people generally, and they're also very artistic and, very creative. Because that's what you're doing, is you're taking just lumps of scrap metal and you're creating an amazing thing that can last hundreds of thousands, even 1,000 years. Swords have lasted. And if you look at swords from 1,000 years ago, the attention to detail and the level of artistry and creativity that goes into those swords, until you actually study it, you don't realise how amazing those craftspeople were. Blow you away. What we're doing these days is just rediscovering it, but they were masters at it. They were, amazing craftspeople back then. They could do some really awe-inspiring stuff. And there's people now that explore different aspects of the different crafts that they did back then. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It makes sense. So I'm into my martial arts, and it's the same type of thing. People generally think of martial arts people as being aggressive or meatheads or bullies. And again, it's the same type of thing. They're all highly intelligent. Well, sorry, not all. There's idiots and everything, but they're predominantly like highly intelligent, creative. It's called martial artists for a reason.
It's in the name, really.
Yeah, they're artists. There's an element of creativity towards it and everything. So it's interesting that that reflects itself in other things that you wouldn't necessarily automatically align to that. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And, if they're good martial artists, no doubt they're in contact with the higher self. And, to like Bruce Lee says, is you have to not be fixed to a doctrine. You have to not be identified with a set of rules and beliefs. You have to be like water. You have to flow into whatever situation, whatever container you find yourself in. And to do that, you got to be above the egoic mind. The egoic mind wants to have beliefs, not wants people to have belief otherwise, so that they can have enemies. But higher conscious people are not identified with beliefs. They can calculate in a situation because they're not stuck in their mind. They're present. It's about presence, isn't it? So your best martial artists are going to be the ones that can just be present and part of a situation without judgment, without holding beliefs, and who knows what can happen with them, which is what Bruce Lee was saying when he says, be like water. It's just flow into the container that you find yourself in. And that's kind of what I try and do is, you obviously have an understanding of what you're doing, but you don't cling to it. You have to understand what you're doing, but be able to adapt it to where you find yourself. And in my situation, it's making fantasy swords that work as real swords, because all real swords were fantasy swords the day before they were made.
Yeah. That is a good point.
Mm.
So where can if someone wants a sword, they go to your website? What's the process?
How do you post someone a sword?
I make a box for it. I just build boxes for them, and you can post it to most countries. They're still legal in most countries.
Are they unsharpened?
No, they're deadly sharp. They're deadly sharp. I think because a sword is such a cultural icon, you can't make them illegal. Because they're massive cultural, a piece of heritage for most countries. Every country's had their sword histories.
Damn it, now I want a sword.
Well, you can't. I'm spending all of our profits on my sword. You can't have one yet.
Well, we do a collaboration. That's cool. So if I'm consulting with a client, they're going to get in touch with me, and we'll work out a budget, obviously, whether they've got the right sorts of amounts of money for what they want, and then they've got to communicate how they see their vision, and then I'll usually interpret that and communicate to them how I would interpret that and turn that into what I do, and discuss what can be done, get the pricing figured out, and like I say, usually they will. It's all done by email.
Yeah.
That way I have a written record too. But usually they'll give me pretty free rein on it, a fair bit of leash, so I can be creative and not have to conform to a set of ideas, because the sword doesn't do what you want it to do always. Pardon?
You're really speaking to me.
Yeah, the sword doesn't do what you want it to do. It just doesn't. Like tiny heat treat a blade, they're all wavy and bent, and you've got to try and straighten them, and you may have to prune it a bit, like trim it down a little bit here and there just to reshape it back the way it's meant to be. Like you're turning it liquid and then refreezing it, and it ain't going to stay the same shape. Like I say, everything's done by email, and then I can refer back to it as I'm working. So I've got a written record of everything we've discussed.
The sword you showed us before, that one behind you, what did you make that for, and what's it worth?
Basically, I had a period last year where I wasn't getting enough commissions, and it's partly my fault, because I got to the point where I was going so well that I thought, and I had some difficult customers, and it inspired me to say, well, stuff commissions, I'm just going to make what I want to make, my own artistic creations, and put them up for sale. And it went all right, but then, I don't know, there's some political turmoil. I might make excuses and blame it on certain idiots who got voted into power. But things just went pear-shaped for a bit there, so I opened myself back up to doing commissions, which, it's good, because I like things to be special for people. I like to be able to give of my craft, but I still, usually it's only one or two a year where I can, I'll still want to do my own creations, because they're up there and I've got to get them out.
Yeah.
And I might be able to sneak the blade in with another set of blades, but then it might be a couple of months before I can get back to work on the hilt for it. And like I say, maybe one or two a year I'll do my own creations and then put them up for sale. So these ones are my own creativity. And I've been working on a couple of rapiers as well, because rapiers aren't something that I've done a lot of. So I was doing some experiments and making some blades so I could learn from them. And basically I didn't want to do it on someone else's job. I just wanted to make a couple of rapiers so I could learn all about it and experience them. And they're for sale, obviously, because I don't make bad things. If I made something bad, I wouldn't sell it, but I only make good stuff. So there was one blade with one slight imperfection, which I ended up selling just for someone else to work on. But
what's that sword worth? What would you sell that sword for? I personally don't like that one, just as a gauge of reference.
This is basically a sort of a transitional rapier when they were going from rapiers to small swords in the early 17th century. But those swords that I do, my creations are priced cheaper than a commission. So my creations is sort of $2.5 to $3,000 US because I put everything in US. Most of my clients.
Yeah.
So my creations are usually going to be $2.5 to $3,000 US, and then commission work's usually $3,000 to $4,000 or so. Can go up, depends what people want, and that's before I add scabbards and whatnot. So probably one of the most expensive kits I've done would have been up around $8,000 US for the sword, the scabbards, the belts, everything. I've done a couple of that sort of price range. So about $8,000 US.
And how long does it make? This is a question we probably should have asked earlier. How long does it take to make a standard sword? I imagine a smaller sword would be faster, but to make a full kit.
I do about one a month.
Yeah.
One set a month. I think I've only done 4 swords this year, and I've probably done 3 scabbards.
Yeah.
So. I had a couple myself at the start of this year.
Is that 5 days a week, or is that doing it when you can?
Property, and this is the thing when you got property.
Yeah.
So much work to do, So much work to do. Animals,
So what were you doing before you became a swordsmith? Like, did you have you had the hobby farm? Like, how, No,
I didn't. I got the hobby farm after.
Okay,
no, I was.
That makes me feel better. I was worried that I hadn't bought myself the property I wanted to live in.
Buy the hobby farm first.
Yeah, well, that's it. Do I make the big ticket purchase while I'm employed by the man and then quit, or do it the other way around? So hopefully, you're about to tell me that.
Yeah. Like I say, everything happened for me so well, and I'm 42, so I'm a little bit older than you guys. I started sword making when I was about 30, and I already had a house then and a mortgage, that sort of thing. But I was a new home building consultant working for a project home builder.
Yeah.
So like I say, a history in sales, and I just got obsessed with the swords. And then when the market shifted in late 2007, the GFC hit, and the new home building market just was dead. Everybody had all these homes they'd invested in, and then you couldn't do anything with them. They were all going dirt cheap, all these brand new built homes. And you could pick up homes for very little at the time. So no one was wanting to build. No one wanted to really invest. And if they did, they could, clean up after someone who'd overinvested before that. And my work dried up pretty much. So all the time I was just obsessed with my swords. All my work time, I was just thinking about swords, designing swords and that sort of thing. And, I made a mistake which got me fired, which was, one of the best things that could have happened. I should have quit a couple of months before that. But, because you're conditioned, you don't quit,
Yeah.
He doesn't remember quitters and, winners never quit and all that crap. I should have quit months before, but luckily I stuffed up and got myself fired, which was great because it set me free to become a swordsmith. So. And then, like I say, I resisted that even for a bit, but then once I embraced it, everything just fell into my lap. It was really cool.
Yeah. So there's hope for my hobby farm dream, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Totally. I don't know how it's going to make it happen, but otherwise just be happy where you are. Be happy with what you got.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you see an opportunity or you come up with an inspired thought, just do it. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I'm out of questions, and I told you we'd keep you half hour, but I secretly thought we'd go a bit longer, which we have.
Yeah. That's your hour.
Yeah. Oh, no, we had our conversation. I said it'll be about an hour. And yeah, you wanted the half. I'm like, yeah, we'll do half. It'll probably go an hour. But
We'll go for an hour.
Yeah. That's very fun.
did you have any final thoughts or anything you wanted to share? If you're open to it, we'd love to get you back on again. Maybe when your book's ready to go, because this was a great conversation, even with the learning about the swords aside.
Yeah, I'm not used to talking about swords much either, because my wife has no interest in it. You know,
it's funny.
It's all online. Yeah, it's all online, so yeah, I don't usually talk to people about swords, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, I'll be happy to come back anytime. There's no worries. I'm sure we'll think of some stuff to talk about. Yeah, if you have any other questions that come up, yeah, let me know. No, I don't have any parting thoughts that I necessarily want to say. But yeah, just good to hear from people.
Yeah.
Cool, man. We'll sort this out, and we'll email it through to you when it's up. But so if people want to get in contact with you and follow you, your Fable Blades on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, and Instagram. I'm on Instagram. Yeah, it's all under Fable Blades or fableblades.com. There's links on my webpage. And for email, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, it's all on the webpage. So yeah, fableblades.com. And I'll have the books on there soon, hopefully. Well, the book, like I say, it's done. I just got to tidy it up and publish it. About 200 pages. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Are you going? I know I was wrapping up, but are you going to self-publish, or do you have a publisher? Like, how do you get a book out?
Yeah, how do you write it? How do you get a book?
I'll just self-publish it. That's cool. I'll sell it through my website, or I'll put it on Kindle and maybe offer some softback copies.
Yeah.
Publishing direct, like publisher direct sort of soft copies they can buy, or I'll just sell it off my website. Yeah, it's all a bit of fun. Hopefully people want to hear my story. And like I say, a lot of it's about trying to help people with my advice of what I've learned. Yeah, it's a bit advicey, but just about becoming self-employed. You know, just about doing your passion, following your passion, and how you can make it work.
No, definitely give it a read, man. One of my car parked ideas for when I've got a bit more time is to write a book as well. So that's why I was asking questions, and my plan was, again, same as you, is to just sell it myself. Going through publishing sounds like a headache.
Yeah.
And I'd rather get it out there and make less money than deal with a suit and make a little bit more money.
Well, I don't know if you would. I don't know. Publishers need to. It has to be important to them.
Yeah.
Whereas it's important to you, so you'll do the best for yourself. You know, we're pretty lucky living the age we do, where everything's, you know, we've got so many tools at our fingertips, you know, with the internet and all these things. It's a great time to be here.
Love it, man. Well, thank you very much for coming on, and we'll be in touch. I'm probably going to email you about my sword idea, so I know how much it might cost me one day.
Yeah, just hit me. Yeah, that's cool.
Cheers, man.
All right. Cheers.
See ya.
See ya.